Thanks to Sana Skin Studio for supporting the No podcast. Sana is a skin studio that is shifting the relationship with your skin and your products through goal-driven facials, real guidance, and clean skincare. Stay tuned for our promo code so you can receive $25 off of your first facial at Sana Skin Studio. Welcome to the No podcast with me, Nikki Spo.
What's up, fam? You are listening to The Know, where it is not about knowing everything, but about coming to know ourselves. I am your hostess, Nikki Spo, and I am so happy that you're here. If you are not subscribed to the show yet, go ahead and click subscribe on your favorite listening platform or all of them so that you never miss an episode. You never know what we're going to be talking about next. Today, we are going to be talking about money with Amber Frankhuizen, who is on a mission to heal the financial fight or flight response by providing easy investing techniques for beginners and just take the fear out of managing our finances. I don't know about you, but here's what I think. I don't think that money can buy happiness per se, but I do think that money can give us the freedom to make choices that align with our values and dreams. And girlies, we need to stop being so bashful and straight up weird when it comes to talking about money. So let's hear what Amber has to say on this loaded topic. What's up, Amber? Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me on The Know, where it is not about knowing everything, but about coming to know ourselves, to talk about one of my favorite topics ever, and that's money, money, money.
I'm so stoked to be here. You have the best, most powerful, grounded, amazing energy. I've been binging your shows, and I'm so grateful to be here with you and your community. So thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, Amber, thank you so much. So first, walk us through what you do for a living and how you're helping people.
I actually own a creative marketing agency. That's my day job. My passion project is my podcast, Old Money, where I like to talk about everything from living well to investing and learning about savings and all the things that I feel like only old white men are talking about right now.
Oh my gosh.
Trying to break it down in more digestible pieces, because this has just been my journey as I've been learning. I'm trying to figure it out. So my rich girls, we're here together and we're learning together.
I love that. I love that your podcast is called Old Money.
It's a vibe.
Such a vibe. It's such a vibe. And where do you stand on the money freedom versus money buying happiness whole topic?
I actually just had somebody write into the show last week. So I just answered this question, and it was interesting because the question that was written to me had charge behind it. And it was something along the lines of you're so obsessed with money. What do you think? It's going to buy you happiness? And I was like, oh, damn, it took me a minute to not get heated by that too, or reactive to it, because I think that's just emblematic of so many people's feelings about it. Oh, if you are talking about money, you must be unhealthily obsessed with it, or you think it's going to give you this thing. And the reality is, I think a lot of people think that when they have money, they will feel joy. They will feel less stress. They will feel better. They will be the most ideal version of themselves. It's the same thing when people are like, I'll do this thing when I lose the next 5 pounds. It's this unattainable goal. And, as we say, there's always somebody with a bigger yacht. It's like this goal that we never achieve. So while money doesn't particularly buy happiness, because we need to find those feelings within ourselves now, I will say that poverty can't buy anything at all. So when you have money, as you said, you have options, right? So you have resources. You get to live the life you want. You can design your days, your mornings, your life, your job, your work, everything around your preferences. And to me, that would make me pretty damn happy. So I'm all about it.
I love the way that you broke that down. I think that it's really important that we also acknowledge the fact that you can have all the money in the world and still be a broken ass person. You know what I mean? There's a saying that I love, and it's some people are so poor, all they have is money.
That's so powerful. I love that.
Right?
I'm going to make sure to quote you on that, because that's a good one.
I didn't say it myself, girl. Somebody else said it, but it always stuck with me. I'm like, some people are so poor, all they have is money. Because you know what? That ain't the life either, honeys. That ain't the life either. Mm-mm. All right, Amber. So why do you think women are so weird about talking about money?
There's a lot of societal pressure that I think we've all grown up with. We just are sponges as we're younger, as we're adolescents. And I think one of the things as women is that we are always taught to be good girls, right? We're supposed to get good grades, go to school, get the good job, marry the right guy. And a lot of that has just been about programming and a lot less about intentional living or intentional living by design. And I think that with money, it's one of those things where if we don't feel confident in what we're talking about, it gets a little sticky. And it's also about, women are very communal. We don't want to be competitive. It's like how they have tall poppy syndrome in Australia. Have you heard about that?
No, what is it?
Tall poppy syndrome is this like cultural thing in Aussie culture where they don't brag like Americans do. They cut tall poppies down. So if you stand too tall as a flower in the field, they're like, no, we don't want to hear that you're doing well. We want to cut you down. And I kind of think that's how it is with women as well, right? We're taught to be supportive, good girls.
Not to outshine the other one.
Right, exactly.
Don't shine too bright, girlies.
But also don't be too much, but also be good. So the flip side of that is if you're doing successful or doing well, it's awkward to talk about because of tall poppy syndrome. On the other side, if you're in debt, if you're struggling with budgeting, there's a lot of shame associated with that because we're supposed to just have it all figured out. We're supposed to be doing the right thing, but nobody's really teaching us what the right thing is, or we might be getting this certain set of rules that doesn't apply to us as women or to whatever stage of life that we're in. For example, if you have 2 kids in daycare or you're 24, you just got your first job, your budgeting concerns are going to be wildly different.
Really different.
Right?
Totally.
So why is one person coming out there and saying, this is the money plan, this is the way to go, this is the only thing you should be doing? It's just not realistic. So we need to empower women to be able to take all of the variables of their life and make empowered decisions for themselves.
I don't know how guys do it, but I feel like they go and they golf, and maybe there's a dude listening and they're probably thinking like, well, that's not really how it works. But I just generally feel like guys will go golf or they'll be out at lunch or whatever, and like they're much more willing and open to talk about numbers, like actual numbers.
Stock tips.
Right?
What are you investing in? Yeah,
exactly. And I don't think women are doing that as much. And I've personally tried to change that, like especially with what I do as a person of influence or a content creator or a podcaster. I'm like, this is how much we should be charging for advertisements, girls.
Right.
Like, this is how much we should be charging for Instagram posts. Like, come on, girls, where are we at? Like, how are we giving our magic into the universe and like receiving back from it? And I think that women also struggle with that, like that we should be giving things out for free and that we shouldn't be compensated for our magic and our time and our energy and our efforts and our intelligence and our like everything that we're capable of, and that we just should limit ourselves.
Right, because we've been taught to be agreeable and not, cause a ruckus or, rock the boat. So I think these things are ingrained in us from a very young age. I totally agree with you.
So what is like this fight or flight mentality when it comes to money?
I coined this term financial fight or flight because I was trying to heal my own money trauma. So just to take us back a little bit and give context to your community that I haven't met yet. When I got out of college, it was 2009. I was trying to get a job in real estate development. If anybody remembers what the economy was like back then, not great for anybody in real estate. So I started at the bottom. I was leasing apartments. I moved my way up through a huge multinational company, got transferred back to San Diego from Northern California. I went and worked at one of the most premier private home builders, like luxury real estate developers in San Diego, and worked my way up to being vice president of sales and marketing at that firm by the age of 29. I was making 6 figures. I had that title that I thought I would get when I was like 40, 50 years old. That was like the pinnacle, right? I was working on these insane projects, and I was also 5 figures in debt, absolutely sick mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, just a mess.
Holy shit. You also like just painted this picture of like how great you are, and then you're like, like the record slows down and you're like, wait, but hold up.
And the thing is, Nikki, I don't think my story's special. I think there's a lot of women out there who have gone through that path. And I know that because I keep saying that. People are like, oh, wow, I used to be really sick working at my corporate job, or yeah, this happened to me. And for
like
me,
physically sick?
Physically sick. Yeah. I was like actually having symptoms. Like I had really bad hormonal issues. My stress, like cortisol, was out of control. I was the youngest and the only woman on an executive team. The pressure was out of control. And quite frankly, I was in a role that was far bigger than my level of experience was. Like I was just barely scraping by. And I knew I had to leave that job. Like I knew I had to. So I started interviewing all over the country. And as I started to go all over and, I would go to New York for a week and like work with them. And I'd be like, oh, wow, it's just the same thing, different faces. I was like, this is the industry. That's not my energy level. That might not be the most suitable thing for me.
Like so not compatible.
Yeah, I love, and I still get to work in real estate development now, but from a branding and marketing perspective where I control the dynamics, right? Because it's through my company. But I decided, okay, I'm just going to leave and I'm going to heal. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take some time off. So I saved money for like 9 months. I gave my company 6 months notice. I was waiting basically for a building to get completed so that we could close $60 million in escrow in 30 days. I could throw a party and say peace. Like I was out of there. And then I was going to rest and I like went to go heal myself. I don't know. I hiked in like Colorado. I went to the beach, whatever. And then a couple of weeks later, my phone rang and somebody was like, could you help me with my marketing? And then, it kind of snowballed. And then I was like, oh shoot, I guess I have to start a company and like open a bank account and things like that. So I was like in this phase where I was living off my savings. Then, wow, how incredible. I can create my own income. Like this is magical.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, it is pretty wild. And in that process, after paying off all my debt, saving all this money, feeling like I was in control of my life, within another year, I was back in 5 figures of debt again. How did this happen? And I'll tell you how it happens for most people, Nikki. And I wish, same thing with you. I didn't coin this. I wish that I thought of it, but I heard this on TikTok. I wish I knew the creator. But the phrase was, we're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. We're living from vacation to pet hospital emergency. And that was literally my life. I was like, look at me. I started a company. I should go to Sayulita or I should go to Cabo. And I did. And then I adopted a dog, and unbeknownst to me, she was basically dying. So I spent like $6,000 bringing her back to life. And then I was so distraught about her being in the hospital. I was on the phone with my mom, pulling into an anthropology so I could go, make myself feel better, because that's what you do when you're sad, when you're not healed with your money. I sideswipe a brand new Volvo, and then there's another $2,500. So it was just like one thing after another. And I was back in the hole so quickly. And that's when I knew, if I'm going to have a company and I'm going to be responsible for paying other people's salaries, I have got to figure this out. And that's where I figured out the financial fight or flight, which I can tell you about.
Tell us about it.
When we perceive danger, whether it's real or imagined, like we're being chased by a lion or we had a really hard meeting, our physiology in our body changes, right? Like we start to get our heart pounding, our blood pressure goes up, we don't think as clearly, the cortisol raises. And what happens is that your amygdala, which is a part of your brain, will trigger your brain to do all of those things, like dump the adrenaline in your body. So essentially it shuts off other things in your brain so that you can focus on survival. That's what fight or flight is. So what I realized was that because I was living in a constant state of fight or flight from starting this new business or being in the corporate boardroom and feeling in over my head, I never had my processing center of my brain turned on. My amygdala had always been hijacking my thoughts. And your amygdala contains, the area of your brain that has memory and your senses. It keeps you regulated, basically. So when you're in a deep amount of stress, you just don't think clearly. And when you're in a deep amount of stress, it often obviously dysregulates your entire physiology, but the amygdala also deals with emotions. So it can really tie into your finances, because when you have emotions that you can't process because you're dysregulated, I can speak for myself. I would, like I said, pull into anthropology to spend $100 on candles to make myself feel better, because that's what I thought would work. Or I would say, oh my goodness, like I worked so hard this week. I deserve to go to the spa. I couldn't afford to go to the spa. And that's where I think this shame comes in so much, because we know these things, right? But it's like, why are we still spending money on the credit card when we know we don't have the money? It's because we actually are not thinking clearly, because our brain is hijacked by this fight or flight that we're feeling in our body.
It's so true.
Again, this is not a special story. I'm sure there's so many women out there that have dealt with this.
So I am very open about my struggles with addiction. And so I identify as an alcoholic. And I remember when I quit drinking, I was like, okay, well, what else can I do? I'm like, wait, well, what's going to fill me now? Like, now I know, and I have a relationship with my higher power, and that fills me mostly. But every once in a while, if I'm upset, I'm like, let me go to Chanel. I need a Chanel bag. Like, that's going to fix it. And I did that for a little bit. And I was like, oh, this is a temporary high. Like, this is a temporary high. Like, this isn't real. Like, am I happy I have those handbags? And sure, yeah, a little bit, like a little bit. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I like nice things too, but that's okay too. But like, also just understanding where and why I'm spending the money.
We're looking for that hit of dopamine, and it's like Our poor baby brains, this chemical process that happens that we are supposed to be in control of all the time. But these chemicals are so strong. They influence us so much. And we know this from when we're stressed, right? Or when we're sad or when we're happy, like how you feel elated, or when you're sad, you feel depressed. It's chemically happening in your brain. Yet we're somehow supposed to know what chemicals are being dropped, what's causing it, be aware of it all, and control how we swipe our credit card in relation to it. It's a lot to manage.
Well, it's also like sleep on it. Like I had to like really, really teach myself to like sleep on it.
100%.
Are you still thinking about this tomorrow? Like, are you the next day? I remember being like, you know what? Take a beat. Like, just slow down. And it's hard to do that. So like, how do you coach people through healing that?
I want to make really clear. I'm not some sort of financial guru. I went to school for business. I've been in finance my whole career with real estate development. I run my own business. This is my personal passion. And I've learned all of this from reading books, going to seminars. I, walked on coals with Tony Robbins. I read all of his financial books. I'm learning along with everybody here. And so
I love that you said that. Because I feel very similarly.
Yeah, I'm no guru. We can all be our own gurus. Like, I'm just sharing what I learned. And this is what I did. And that was one of the first things, Nikki, is that I started keeping a list of everything that I wanted to buy. Everything had a cooling off period for me because I couldn't control myself. I really couldn't. I was just swiping out of like, I need this, I need that. But like the other thing for me was that I was kind of a freak about online shopping. So if there's anybody out there that can relate to knowing all 16 digits of your credit card numbers, I knew all of mine.
I know all of mine. You know how it goes. You're like 4, 5, 5. Like, you know how that Visa starts, right? Like,
oh my gosh, I know.
Because here's what I did. I was like, I'm going to turn off my Apple Pay. Didn't exist, a couple of years ago, like 5 years ago when I was going through this. But I turned off like Google Auto Pay and stuff like that. But then I still knew the numbers by heart.
Pay, bro. My God.
Right. I know.
I knew the numbers.
It's bad.
So I had to call my bank and I lied. And I said, I lost my wallet. I need all new credit cards. And what I did when I got those new credit cards, I literally put them in a Ziploc baggie, filled the Ziploc bag with water, and I put it in my freezer, and I physically froze my credit cards.
Stop it. Okay. In the world of the spiritual woo-woo world, right? You should see my fucking freezer, guys. Like, I tell this to like potential suitors. I'm like, fuck around and find out. Your ass is gonna wind up in the freezer. I'm like, you try me. Anybody who's listening who knows this is probably like, Dad doesn't know about her freezer. I literally freeze people in the freezer, not actual humans, but like I put their name on a piece of paper and I'm like, if I need somebody to stop, like leave me alone, or just need this energy to like not be part of my life. There's a process. You can look it up. I putting it in the freezer. So you froze your credit cards. Because I love hearing this because I freeze people.
That's amazing. We're so aligned on that. It's definitely a barrier to me using the credit card, right? Like if there's an emergency, I'm going to have to break out a hammer and break that block of ice.
So crazy.
But I had to put myself on ice. You know what I mean? Like I had to slow it down. So I got new credit cards. I froze them. I turned off Apple Pay, Google Pay, all those auto things. And then I also put things on lists. So I had a cooling off period. And then the other thing that I did was a fuck ton of journaling. I was a journaling queen because I knew, again, this was like my low of like, I thought I had this under control. And then I'm right back here again. And I had my new dog at the time, and she's fortunately healthy and happy now. She's literally laying right here next to me. And I would walk her around for hours at a time, talking into my phone. And I would be journaling like, what emotion's coming up for me that makes me want to go to Zara right now? I don't feel enough. I don't feel like I have anything to wear. I don't feel like what I have is good enough. I don't feel like this. And then I would listen back to it and I'd be like, oh, not enough. Okay, that's the problem. That's interesting. Let's look at that a little bit more. And I would break it down every single day. And then on the flip side of that, because that's really hard and heavy journaling, and like lots of tears were shed for me with that. But the other thing that I started to do was I started to try to envision a compelling future for myself. Again, this is not Amber coming up with this. This is Tony Robbins, Ed Milet. This is all the gurus, like what they tell us to do. Create such a compelling future for yourself. Tell yourself what your life will look like when you're not in debt. Tell yourself what your life will feel like when you're wealthy. Tell yourself what you will be like, who you will be when this thing is happening to you, when your bank account is overflowing, when you have your credit cards paid off every single month, when you're leveraging those credit card points and flying to Italy for free. What does that feel like for you? And I would journal that into a voice note, and then I would listen it back to it as my own mantra. And I'd walk around my neighborhood and listen to my ideal future. And Nikki, when I tell you that is my ideal future, it's my reality today. Like, it happened.
Stop. You know, like, I just got like very emotional about that. Like, listening to you just say all of that, like from when you started about like just even sharing about where these feelings are coming from and the lack of worthiness or not being enough, right? Like, I need something else to make me feel better or more or like be good enough, and into creating a compelling future for yourself. And what does that feel like for you? It's like, it's such a vulnerable space to be in, to even admit those things and say them out loud.
Oh my gosh, how vulnerable it was to walk around my neighborhood and be crying all of the time, not just healing what I was trying to work through, but also crafting that future and saying, is this real? Could that be real for me? Could that be possible?
Like, how do I do it?
How do I do it? And honestly, I still don't know like the magic like formula there, except for, and this is one of the biggest things with finance, I feel I had all of this information about what I needed to do with my money, but I hadn't started executing on it until I thought about my future self. Like, if my future self is a millionaire, then she invests all the time. She is educating herself all of the time. She manages her budget all of the time. She doesn't let things slide. Who is that future version of you that's going to hold you accountable today, lovingly, right? Without shame. But like, what life do you want to live? Like, you get to choose. And I think a lot of us have outsourced our power with money. Like, oh, you know, it's the economy or my job. It's my boss isn't giving me a raise.
Whoa.
Game changer.
Talk about that a little bit more, about outsourcing your power when it comes to money.
There's this theory or this concept in personal development called an internal locus of control versus an external locus of control. And if you've never heard this term before, you probably know these people in your life. The people that have an external locus of control are the ones who point to everything else as to why their life is the way that they live. Yeah. You know, I grew up in this type of town, or my parents didn't teach me about money, or why didn't they teach this in high school? Or I got screwed because I graduated in 2009 during the Great Recession.
It's kind of like a victim mindset.
100%. And having an internal locus of control means that despite what happened to me, like, I'm going to persist anyway. And here's the things that I can control. I recognize that I cannot control when I graduated from school and tried to get a job. I can't change that. It's not within my purview. But what I can change is what I do with that information, because as we know now, historically, more people are made millionaires in times of recessions than in times of, you know, wealth. So it's all about what we decide to do with that time. So if we sit around on our couches and point the fingers at the economy or the president and say, this is why I'm not successful, there are other people out there getting successful right now. They just have a different worldview than you do.
Whoa, that's major. All right, guys, let's take a quick break so I can thank our sponsor, Sana Skin Studio, with their OG location in Wynwood and their additional locations in Fort Lauderdale and Coconut Grove. Okay, so the best way I can describe Sana is that it feels like coming home. Unlike traditional facials, Sana's facials are rooted in education, and I love this so much. Every experience I have had at Sana has been a chance for me to learn more about my skin and its needs. I love that the facials are effective while also being accessible enough to be a monthly ritual rather than a yearly splurge. This is why the Sana membership is so great. I'm honored to be able to provide our audience with a promo code. Use the code THEKNOGLOW for $25 off of your first facial when booking at sanaskinstudio.com, and additional incentives if you book a membership. I have absolutely loved my skin healing journey with Sana Skin Studio. Let's say we've done all this healing work, Amber, right? Like, which obviously can take a really long time, you know? Like, you just have to start. You just have to start, though. Like, so if anybody's listening and they're like, okay, well, how do I even do it? You just have to take one step forward. Like, you just have to start with one step, you know? And maybe it's the talking into your phone. Maybe it's the journaling. Maybe, you know, it is what it is for you, and you can make it what it is. But once you start the healing journey, like, finances can still be a really scary world. So how do we even begin to, like, if we're healing, how are we facing the fear?
I just want to remind everybody that it never ends. Like, even me, I talk about money all the time. new level, new devil. It's like, there's more money. My business is doing better than ever. I have more in payroll, more in expenses. I'm trying to manage my investments. It's scarier now. It feels like there's more to lose. It's always about the capacity. It's kind of like when you go to the gym, you don't start deadlifting 150 pounds on day one. You start with the bar and then you add, 5 pounds on each side and you build your capacity to hold the weight. It's the same thing with money, right?
That's so major.
Right. You hold your capacity, you build your capacity rather to hold different amounts of money. So until you master just, holding the bar, you can't level up. So you have to master your finances at whatever stage you are at now, so that when you get to the next stage, you have more capacity and you've built that muscle.
That's genius. Honestly, that analogy is so clear. Like, it makes so much sense. It's very straightforward. And what does that mean, though, to hold the next level?
There was a time where I thought, I don't have $25 this week to put into my investment account because I need to be social and that's important to me. And I need to go out with my friends. And so I made those decisions, right? Well, I didn't have the capacity to invest $25 and make a change elsewhere. So when I get to the point where now I'm making more money and I'm like, I don't have the capacity for $250 a week, it's like I needed to kind of exercise that muscle when it was $25 so that I felt comfortable investing $250. And what happened was I was then making six figures and I had never exercised what it felt like to invest the $25. So I wasn't ready to do the $250. So I had to start from 25, even when I was making six figures, if that makes sense. So when we get bigger, money's problems, so to speak, and I don't want to call them a problem, but challenges to solve. It's like, if you're not comfortable investing, I don't know, a deposit into an apartment that you're going to maintain for $10,000 a year, how is it going to be that you're going to put down a $1 million down payment on a home and see that money go out of your bank account and not freak the fuck out about it? You've got to calm your financial nervous system when you do these things and you make these moves at smaller dollars, so that when you get to bigger dollars, you're not having this physiological reaction that's going to hack your brain and you make bad decisions with it. So it's like every time we get bigger, it's an opportunity to grow the muscle, regulate ourselves, and have faith in the way that we're managing our money.
Yeah, I think that's really key, is the faith portion. It's okay. And to the gym, on the gym analogy, it's you're not going to see the change day one.
Right. That's so annoying, isn't it? I did sit-ups yesterday. Where's my six pack?
Yeah, we're in my hands.
Yeah, I started an investment account. Why am I not a millionaire yet?
Right.
What happened?
I know. What the fuck? I want to mention something about the $25, right? So I used to be a school teacher. And in case you live under a rock, school teachers don't get paid shit, right? I think after taxes, I made $35,000 annually. At the time, I had a one-bedroom apartment and I was completely financially independent. This was in 2012, okay? I was in a committed relationship and I was very financially independent. My rent was $950 a month. And still somehow, I gave myself a $400 spending allowance for my expenses. And I put away $400 a month into my savings account. At the time, I wasn't investing. I was just focused on saving, right? So my whole thing was it started at $100. I started being you know what, I can afford, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it started at $50. I was you know what, until I get on my feet, I can afford to put $50 in my bank account a month. I can put that aside. And then I was you know what, I can put 100, and it slowly grew to 400. And that's on a very, very limited salary, very, very small, limited salary. And then fast forward, I started living with my then partner and he was taking care of the rent. And so I said, you know what, instead of now seeing that with my teacher salary that I have those $950 extra dollars, I said, you know what, I'm going to put all that money in my savings account at that time. And so by the time I had gotten married, I had $100,000 saved. And I was so proud of that. And that's that I went to school. I paid my own tuition. I paid I was financially independent since the time I was 19. And I'm sharing that because I think that it's a relevant point to bring up, that you can start at whatever financial space that you are in, and work towards achieving your financial goals, even if it's scary. And I think that people don't need to be fearless. They just need to be courageous, because there is not a life without fear. Courage is being willing to like look at the fear and like step through it. You know, I am not a fearless woman. I am scared of so many things, but I think that I'm a courageous woman. And that courage allows me to face hardships, hard things, difficult things, things that are unpleasant, that don't make me happy in the moment, you know? And I think that that's a muscle that we as people, especially women, need to build as well.
And that just completely illustrates, Nikki, that you have a very strong internal locus of control, because you're going to look at your circumstances and make decisions. It doesn't matter that you're a salary and your salary is $35,000 a year. You're like, what can I do with this? What can I do to leverage this for myself, instead of complaining about it and saying, well, I need, $400 in savings. No, I need $400 in new clothes again this month. You are controlling it. And I think that is a really hard conversation to have with a lot of people about choices. And this is something that comes up a lot. I live in San Diego. I live in one of the most beautiful urban neighborhoods in San Diego. I love where I live. And people are like, you don't own a home? And my mom sold homes. My grandmother sold homes. I'm a licensed real estate agent. And I'm like, no, I don't. And people are like, wow, don't you feel bad about that? And I'm like, no. I could own a home. I could have bought a home 5 years ago. I could have bought a home again, but it couldn't have been here. I could buy a home in Oklahoma, in Georgia, in East County, San Diego, but I don't want to live there right now. I've decided to make my choice to live here. And when I lived literally on the sand for 8 years in La Jolla and Carlsbad, even when I had the tiniest little apartment, my little only child soul who needs so much protection and aloneness, I was like, I need to save money. I'm getting a roommate. I did whatever it took in order to financially better myself. And those challenges are hard to make. So when people are saying, I only make $35,000 a year, I can't have what I want, I can't save. I am not saying it's not hard out there. The economy is crazy. Okay. I totally understand. But there are choices that we could make, whether it's house hacking and having somebody move into your extra bedroom, or moving towns, or changing jobs. People think they're stuck in the jobs that they have. We should be changing jobs every 2 years out there, like getting new opportunities and up-leveling our salary. There's a lot of things that are within our control. And unfortunately, when we're under financial fight or flight, or just fight or flight in general, we often can't see opportunities. We feel limited. We feel stuck. So, we have resources at our disposal. We just have to take advantage of them.
Absolutely. So I think that there's a lot to be said about taking those first steps and helping people get to that space. So how are you doing that with your coaching?
What I recommend is, if we're looking to start really building wealth, and I think this is where the focus needs to be, because we need to think bigger picture. A lot of people are like, how am I getting to next month? Or where am I going on vacation this year? But the money game is a lifelong game. So I am big on tracking net worth. I want to know what people's net worth is. That's the measure of wealth. It's not what you have hanging in your closet. I mean, it can be, because Birkins and Chanel bags, they are assets. They can actually go on your net worth tracker. Put that valuation in there, sister. Wealthy people are the ones that have the money in the investments in the bank account, et cetera, not the ones that are spending it, right? So net worth is really the biggest kind of overview. It's how we refer to Elon Musk or, Jeff Bezos. We're talking about their net worth, which is a accumulation of all of their assets, their real estate, their quote unquote savings, which we never really know, but the valuation of their businesses, et cetera. So I have a free net worth tracker. I'll give you the link, Nikki, for your audience so that they can download it. And I walk through exactly how to start tracking your net worth, because that's going to be such a game changer of knowing where you are today and how quickly you can grow that net worth. And I tell you, it's intoxicating. You need a substitute for dopamine. It's watching your net worth grow over and over and over. So how do
I want it?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited.
So how do we get our net worth to grow? Well, the first step is we have to get rid of debt, consumer debt. It's high interest debt. So anything that's like a credit card payment or a buy now, pay later thing, please guys, don't be using a fammm. Don't be breaking your shoe purchases into 4 easy payments. No. High interest, not good. Let's get rid of that. Get it off the books, because it's going to eat away at your net worth growth, right? After that, we have low interest debt, like your mortgage, your car payment, your student loans. It's okay to pay those off on schedule so that you can, have your budget to them every single month. But for high interest debt, we want to overpay those minimums. You never want to just be paying a minimum on a credit card. And then before anything else, so you don't get in the same position that I was in of, as I said, vacation to hospital bills for your pets or your kids or yourself or whatever, we need to build up an emergency fund. And the, general thinking out there is first start with $1,000, then go to 3 months of your living expenses, then go to 6 months of your living expenses, right? But what are your living expenses? So we need to be mapping out where our money goes every single month and understanding what those numbers are. So I think about this as like, I could have a fat month where I'm like going and partying and doing everything that I want to do. I can have a regular month and I can have a lean month. So essentially I calculate if the worst happens, my lean month is like my burn rate, right? Like what it takes to keep the lights on. So after we have our savings in place, if you have a 401k program with your employer, I recommend putting in as much as they match. So if your employer gives you a 3% match, I would definitely make sure that you max that out so that you can get that benefit of free money. After that, you have a whole bunch of different retirement vehicles. You could do a Roth IRA, which is where you put after-tax money into a fund to get it at retirement. A traditional IRA, basically you use those to like roll over your old 401ks. All of this to say there's a lot of nuance here. I break it down in a couple of different episodes on old money, but there's also a lot of books out there where you can just pick them up and like be like, what is a Roth IRA? What is a traditional IRA?
Sure. All of the stuff is stuff that you can literally pick up. It's just, and it's like overwhelming. Like it's overwhelming to think about, I think. But once you just get into it, you can break it down.
It's like when people ask me, like, how did you set up your business? Like, how do you form an LLC? Like, if I had to do it again today, I don't know. I'd go back to Google. I literally blacked out.
Yeah, same.
Totally. I don't know. It's once you set up the account, then you don't really have to think about it much again. You just kind of set up your automatic investments, right? And then that's the other thing too, is that I'm a big fan of automation. Like, my wealthy life does not look like me like worrying about every penny I'm spending and like not like knowing where everything is and feeling freaked out. It's about things happen as a machine in the background of my life. So my investments are automatic. My saving is automatic. So all of these things are just set up in systems in the background. But the thing that I get asked about a lot, Nikki, is investing. Like, should I be investing and what should I be doing? And listen, I'm not here to give financial advice. That's illegal for me to do. But I will say, do we think there are any wealthy people out there in the world that are not investing? No, they're all investing their money, whether it's in businesses, in real estate, in the stock market. Everybody that is wealthy is playing the game. If you want to be wealthy, you get to decide to play the game and learn the rules. That's it, like full stop. You do not get to get wealthy by not playing the game. So if wealth is in something that you want to envision for yourself, that's your ideal future life, then you got to learn how to play the game. And I think what a lot of people get intimidated by is they think about like day traders. This is not Wolf of Wall Street. We're not asking you to be like watching the ticker tape on your phone and understanding what's going on. The philosophy on investing is we're playing the long game. And I'm not just talking about retirement because especially when I was in my 20s, like retirement, are you kidding me? Like nothing unsexier than thinking about being 65. But I was also thinking about, okay, when I want to buy a house or when I want to go, I don't know, on vacation or I want to get a new car or have a wedding or whatever it might be, you can play with your money and make it exercise for you. So one of the things that I love right now because of the interest rate environment is there's a lot of opportunity to get money in a high yield savings account, 4.5%, 5.5%. I personally use Capital One. They're not a sponsor, but they should be because I talk about them all the time. The reason I love Capital One is because I can set up individual accounts for all the things that I want to save for. And I set up automatic savings. So when my paycheck drops, immediately $100 goes here, $500 goes here, $1,000 goes here. And my names of my accounts are like Botox fund, vacation fund,
I love this.
House fund. Makes it super clear. And then I look at my accounts, I'm like, damn, I'm going to get like 15 lasers. I'm getting a new face this month. Like whatever I want is mine.
New face this month. You're speaking my language, girl.
Right? So high yield savings are a super easy way to get started in just growing your money. It's basically automatic. You're just earning interest. Love that. And then if we're looking to start investing, I'm always looking for low cost brokerages. That means Fidelity, Vanguard, Charles Schwab. I actually use all three of those institutions for different reasons. They're all just low cost, and that's what we're looking for here. We're not trying to give all of our money away in fees. Okay. And also, like I said, I'm not tracking what's happening with different companies. Like I'm trying to run a business. I'm also trying to take a nap. Like I don't have time to do that. So how do we kind of hack the system? And it's my favorite thing is ETFs, which are exchange traded funds or index funds. Have you heard about this? I'm sure you have.
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay. Question for you. Are you a reality TV girly?
No.
Okay. This might not land for you, but like for any of your listeners out there.
I'm sure a lot of my listeners are.
Like I have basically a PhD in Bravo. Like it's all that I live for. Like the way that I have my schedule set up for Bravo is like the way that I enjoy my life. And so this is the analogy that I like to use. You know, there's all these different shows, right? So you have Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and you have Summer House and you have Real Housewives of Miami and Southern Charm or whatever. And think about each of these individual shows as different companies, Meta, Google, ExxonMobil, whatever it might be, right? If you're investing in just ExxonMobil or just Summer House, what happens when there's a spill in the Gulf or when Summer House, the season sucks and everybody turns it off, the stock goes down, right? However, if you invested in, or let's say you pulled your money out 2 years ago because you're like, Vanderpump Rules is like the most boring show ever. It's going to get canceled. Oh my God, I'm not putting my money in that show. I'm not putting my money in that company. And then all of a sudden this scandal happens, which I'm sure you heard about. This show blows up. The network goes crazy. They've had so much money flow into the network because of that. And you thought it was going to be a dog. So you pulled out and you missed the run. Well, an index fund is something that tracks all of the shows on the network. So essentially, instead of investing in individual shows, you're investing in Bravo as the network, as the group of all of the shows. So the way that that works in real life is there's things like the S&P 500, for example. The S&P 500, Standard & Poor's, is like an investment analysis company, and they pick the top 500 companies by like basically profit and revenue. And they say these are the top 500 companies in America. And if one of those companies falls out, they replace it with 501. So they automatically adjust the S&P 500. So it's always going to be the top 500 companies in America. So you can buy an index fund that tracks that. And if we look historically at the data since the inception of the stock market, it has grown every single year between 8 and 10%. So yeah, there are definitely down years, but over time, it averages out to growth. So if you're like me and you have, a shred of hope in the American economy and you think it will continue to grow over the next 50 years while you're investing, that might be something you would want to look into because you say, I have a belief that the American economy will grow and American businesses, including the top 500 of them, will continue to be profitable. I could invest in that. So instead of investing in just Meta and just Google and just Alphabet, Google is Alphabet, whatever, what you will do is you get a little share of all of them. You're getting a basket of it. So you're tracking the index. And for me, that allows me to turn off my financial fight or flight. When something's happening on CNBC, I'm like, click off. I don't care because I know I trust in over time because I have the historical data that'll continue to go up.
Well, what I'm hearing here is really like an idea and a commitment to playing the long game.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said it before, and it's really about playing the long game. Like we're not in this for immediate satisfaction.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that like as people, we need to really work on ourselves. And this is part of that healing that we touched on in the beginning of our conversation is like really healing that part of ourselves that needs the instant gratification.
Yes, absolutely. How do you calm down your physiology so that you don't need that dopamine?
And also like coming to terms with sitting down and having a very real heart-to-heart conversation with yourself about what wealth looks and feels like to you, because maybe it's not a yacht, like what does wealth mean to you? Like maybe it's the ability to travel the way that you want to travel. Maybe it's, if you have a family, maybe it's that you want to send your kids to the private school of your choosing. Like maybe that is what's wealth, what being wealthy means to you. And we're not here to judge what it is. Like maybe to you it is having all the Birkin bags. Like I don't like, I'm not here to judge you. I'm just here to say like it's up to us to really sit down and determine what that means and and clearly define it so that we can get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that I was the same way. I didn't really look into it. I thought like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to work forever and I'm still not gonna have enough. And it made me feel so disempowered. And It wasn't until I started to really look at the numbers. And by the way, there are so many calculators that you can play with on nerdwallet.com or bankrate.com, where you can put in some numbers and it'll run basically a model for you, a financial model where you can say like, okay, I have a $250,000 in savings or investments right now. How much more do I need to be able to retire at this age? How much do I have to save per month, per week, per year? Or if I want to retire at that age, and it basically just spits it out for you. Put in a couple of variables and you spit it out. And I think a lot of people would be surprised to say, wow, with my income or with mine and my partner's income, like I could live like this at this age. Like here's the goal. It's not this ambiguous forever thing. It's like finally understanding what the quote unquote end game is for you. But one of the things that I always caution on is like, I'm not living to retire. I'm trying to live now. So if we don't balance the need to enjoy our life now with the also responsible thing of taking care of ourselves when we get older, life's going to suck. And I'm not about that. Like old money lifestyle is like leisure, travel, dressing well, feeling good, treating myself. And that's why I'm investing in my Botox fund every month. That's why I have my designer splurges fund, so that I'm squirreling money away in my budget every single month so that I can have what I want and enjoy my life.
I think it's a really, it's funny because we're talking about this concept of old money, right? But I think that like blue collar families, like the one that I grew up in, working class families, was like very big on like save, because like hold on tightly. Like we were holding on, like I grew up in a home that held on so tightly because you didn't know like if you were going to be able to have it. So like a lot of it, and that's not to say like I had a lovely childhood. I got to go on vacations with my family. I'm an only child like you are, so like my parents didn't have the additional expense of like having more having to support more children. But there was definitely of like a feeling, an energy of like, we need to hold on tightly to this. And it goes back to like the story I shared about me saving. I didn't invest in anything. I wanted to save. I didn't want to let any of it go. Like I didn't want any of it because I was terrified, right? I was scared of being in a position like where I wasn't going to be able to take care of myself or provide for myself. So all I cared about was like holding on to it.
Okay, so let me drop this on you and let me know what you think, because when we talk about old money and old money families, a lot of that is about inheriting generational wealth, right?
I think that's important that we talk about.
Yeah. And how about this as a concept? We also inherit our parents' money stories. Yeah. And so if we are not conscious of what we've inherited, we will continue to play out old patterns and not be in control of that. So for me, old money as a podcast, like I call it like the new rules of old money, is being conscious to the money stories that we basically sponged up from our parents growing up, from society, from whatever we saw. We will continue to do those things. So if we want to have a different and more compelling future for our children, for our godkids, for our nieces and nephews, for our friends' kids, whatever it is, it's our responsibility to heal our money now so that we pass on better traits to them so that they don't walk around when they're 25 being like, nobody taught me how to invest because Auntie Nikki sat them down and was like, here's how we're going to do this, sister, when you're 14.
Amber, I love you.
I love you.
Thank you so much for being here. I feel like we've provided like so much knowledge, like such a wealth of knowledge, talking about wealth, like a wealth of knowledge with stuff here. Like this is the episode that like people need to come back to and like take notes. And I'm going to link everything in the show notes that Amber has spoken about. But like this is the type of thing, like I took pages of notes just now while we were chatting, because this is just, there's so much information here. And obviously you can go check out Amber at her podcast, Old Money. Where else can people find you, Amber?
Yeah, I'm on social, Old Money Podcast. My company, AF Marketing, it's AFMKTG, Luxury Branding Creative Agency. If you're in the marketing field, we just love marketing girlies and guys, so come hang out with us there. And my personal that I never post on, Amber in California. If you have questions for me, I answer all of them in the DMs. If you have anonymous questions about money that you need help with, send them in on our website, oldmoneypodcast.com. And I'm always here. Like this is in service for me, for the community. So that's what we're here to do, is get rich together.
Thank you so much, Amber.
You're the best. Thanks, Nikki.
This podcast was brought to you by Sana Skin Studio. Be sure to use my code, TheNoGlow, for $25 off of your first facial at Sana when booking via sanaskinstudio.com. More than a skin studio, Sana is a movement towards healthier skin and self-love. Thank you so much for listening to The Know. If you loved this episode, go ahead and share it with a friend. Words are so powerful, and someone may need to hear what we covered today. And if you really loved this episode, please take a moment to rate the show and leave a review. Your comments are so important and valued, and they give other listeners insight on what to expect on The Know. You can connect with me personally via Instagram at Nikki Spo and The Know with Nikki Spo. My hope for you today is that you are fearless in looking inward so that you can be your highest, most authentic self and go after the life of your dreams.